Now we will begin with House File 633. Would you like to move your bill? Representative Nadeau.
I would move my bill, and I have an amendment. And I would like to move the amendment first, or second.
Representative Doe moves the DE1 amendment. And if you quick give a rundown of that amendment.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. Hopefully this is something that we can have a good conversation about today. The original bill was drafted as a credit. The amendment actually changes it, converts it, the benefit from a state-paid credit to a 50% market exclusion. So prior to this, it would have been, it would have had a fiscal note where schools and municipalities would have had to been paid back by the state, and this is an exclusion.
Is there any discussion to the DE1 amendment? All right. Seeing no discussion, to get the bill in the shape the author would wish it, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. The DE1 is adopted. Representative Nadeau, to your bill.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Mr. Chair. The effect of this bill is a 50% exclusion on property taxes that are attributed to the net capacity levies. And this is only for in-home family care providers. So Minnesota faces a significant challenge, and we've talked about this, and everyone agrees with this. And my goal is to try to build resilient child care, early education capacity in Minnesota. In 2021, the market rate for infant care at a center was $16,164. That was the 6th highest in the nation. We were the 7th highest in toddler care at over $14,000, and we were 2nd in the nation for preschool, trailing only DC, and that cost exceeded $16,000 as well. In 2011, we had 12,000 licensed child care providers in Minnesota. In 10 years, that number dropped to 7,150, and a license lookup on January 1st of this year indicated we have 5,782 active licenses today for in-home family care providers. As the number of providers for family care goes down, the costs and the wait lists go up. Our family child care providers have struggled the most, and the numbers have decreased by over 50% in the last decade. From 2000 to 2020, we've lost 40,000 licensed family child care slots. 37,000 of these were gained back in child care centers, which is great, but it's still a net loss of 3,000 slots. Outstate family care providers fared worse, since larger center-based facilities are less viable in less populated areas. Between 2000 and 2020, outstate Minnesota had a net loss of 20,250 child care slots. This bill is a very simple, common sense bill that I hope helps stabilize in-home family child care providers. It reduces child care wait times and helps build or rebuild the child care early learning system capacity that we have in Minnesota. It alleviates the financial burdens on our in-home providers. It stabilizes existing capacity and incentivizes new family care providers. It begins rebalancing that tax structure that we've actually ignored with in-home providers. I mean, there's some child care centers can now qualify as seminaries of learning for a complete property tax exemption. With a recent, Supreme Court case with Rainbow Early Education versus Goodhue County. So I'm trying to rebalance this. I'm trying to provide some relief for in-home family care providers. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative Nadeau. There's one pause I want to do unrelated to your bill, but we have two new members, well, not new members, but who haven't been here yet. Representative Sensimura also brought another non-voting member to committee. Would you like to introduce us to your wonderful person?
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Sensimura.
This is my daughter, Yuna, who's 6 weeks old.
Awesome. You got me by 2 weeks. Sloan will be here at some point. All right, will now go to public testimony on the bill. We have Grant Johnson to kick us off.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming down, Mr. Johnson. Would you please introduce yourself for the record and begin your testimony?
My name is Grant Johnson, and my wife is a family child care provider in Edina. I am her relief. So I go through all the training, and I help her in any way that I can with her business. I often am the one who goes downstairs. We do it in the lower level of our house. I go down and rile them up before I leave to do my work, and she gets mad at me, but I help her get them outside. And I take over for her when she needs to see a doctor or do something else, because to try to avoid inconveniencing families. What we've experienced in the, I guess it's 37 or 38 years that she's been doing licensed in-home daycare, is that the costs continue to go up. And our costs in utilities, insurance, taxes have skyrocketed in the last several years. We are members of several neighborhood groups, and we see the groups of people attending those training sessions and the groups themselves. They are old like we are. We don't see very many new faces, new young faces. And I think that we need to provide some home-based daycare for those families who want to have the opportunity not to have to go to a center. And it tends to be a little bit cheaper, but it's not as attractive a small business to be in anymore as it used to be.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We will now move down the list to Cindy Cunningham from Lead and Care Public Policy. She is joining us via Zoom. So, Ms. Cunningham, would you introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony? And you are muted, I think.
Just a minute.
There.
Okay, there, now can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you. All right, good, thank you. Technology. I would say it's kind of like a 3-year-old, and we're pretty skilled at that. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to virtually, love that Grant's able to be there, great representative of our family child care industry. And it is nice to be able to do it virtually. Representative Nadeau, this is a great bill, and I'm not clear, nor do I have expertise on the shift. I did testify in the Senate on this bill, so, but irregardless, what was said about the demise of family child care and the impact on family is clear and real. And when we talk about those slots being filled by center, wasn't said, but is known, that's at a much higher rate than what it would be at a family child care. Plus, in family child care, it is considered the culturally close relationship with our families and with our communities. We live in them, we breathe in them, and our families, when my parents drop off in the morning, I'm the person they see at the end of the day. So that continuity of care is incredibly high. So we are in a crisis. Those numbers just make me cringe. I've been around 27 years, and I'm in St. Paul. We are an unfunded delegated program from the state of Minnesota, and frequently some of the funding just isn't getting to us as programs. DHS does fully fund the centers and the certified centers as far as oversight. With this credit, or whatever it turns into, will give us support that we haven't been getting to have a business, to pay property tax, to have all the expenses. This can help stabilize. one of the pieces too is it shows programs in the state that Minnesota supports family child care with a number of the actions that have happened over the last years with modernization, with pre-K, school-based, with some of the pushes that many program providers are really saying, does the state of Minnesota really want us and support us? So I really appreciate this unique way of moving it forward and some equalizing of some of the funding to family child care. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for your testimony. That exhausts the list we had. Is there any members of the public here who would like to testify either for or against House File 633? Anybody? All right, seeing no further testimony, I'll close public testimony. Are there any member questions? Representative Coulter.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to preface my comments by saying that a lot of the things I want to talk about sound like they should be talked about in the tax committee. And I am disappointed that we don't have a property tax division anymore. But I promise I'm getting to a place that is relevant to this committee. So I just want to be clear about that. Representative Nadeau, I actually do want to thank you for bringing this idea forward. I have to confess, I liked your bill better before your amendment. I think, honestly, I think it would be better done as a credit over a market value exclusion, partly because I think, you know, to what Ms. Cunningham just said, if we as a state are going to say we value something, we should be willing to pay for it. And this, to be clear, this market value exclusion does have a cost. The cost is just now going to be dispersed to local property taxpayers, not to the state. But it does, in fact, have a cost. But my first question is, I'm looking at it's lines 1.17 and 1.18 of the DE1. And I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. But in essence, any property qualifying for this exclusion in your bill would not be eligible for the homestead market value exclusion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Representative Nadeau.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Coulter.
Thank you. And I bring that up because what we in essence would be doing is asking in-home providers to choose between this market value exclusion and their homestead market value exclusion, which I know a lot of folks do rely on. So I think we just need to be clear that any lowering of property taxes that might come as a result of a property taking this market value exclusion would be partially offset, at least, by the fact that they would not be able to take the homestead market value exclusion. And so I think, I mean, this is another reason, frankly, why I think it would be better as a credit, because I think it would be, frankly, more bang for our buck in terms of what we would be funding here. And the other point that I really just wanted to raise on this is, you know, when we're talking about market value exclusions, we're talking about something that is based on the value of the property, right? And so in terms of the policy of this committee, what that means is that this market value exclusion will favor more expensive homes. Which means it will likely more strongly benefit folks in wealthier communities. It will more strongly benefit folks in the metro area. And so, you know, all of that is to say, you know, as we're talking about the support that I think we all agree we need to provide to childcare providers, and in particular, family childcare centers, this just does not, like I said, I liked it better the other way, you know? This just does not feel like really the best way to move forward with this. So happy to continue this conversation with you. I do think your head's in the right place. I just don't think this bill is. Thank you.
Representative Nadeau.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Coulter. You know, there's a lot of exclusions in 272. This adds a new one at 36. Properties are not eligible for dual exclusions. In the case that, you know, there's not one market value homestead exclusion that would ever come close to a 50% reduction. And so this would provide a massive 50% reduction in property tax payment for a provider of this. I guess I don't discriminate based on how much someone's house is worth, whether or not 50% of that value should be on an $800,000 house or an $80,000 house. I think this is a fair approach. The reason that I move this to an exclusion is that, and I get it, there's some people like to spend more money. And you're right, this will be covered by increasing in the shares of those other unique taxing authorities that are within this jurisdiction. There is an inherent value to communities that allow in-home providers and they're having them in their community. And I don't think there's one person that wouldn't be happy to do this. I mean, and this share goes on it doesn't matter if it's a vet exclusion, if it's a conservation easement, and we can go right down the list where, and you can argue that we shouldn't have exclusions, and I appreciate that. And you can argue that everything should be a credit, and I appreciate that too. I think right now that the easiest way to try to get this bill done, to actually provide relief and provide capacity for in-home child care providers that hasn't happened ever, is starting right here. And so I hope you can vote for it. We can move it forward. When we go to taxes, there will be a slight tax impact, and we'll have to discuss that. And I would love to have your support and help me shepherd this through. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Representative Nadeau. Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Representative Nadeau. I will agree with Representative Coulter that I appreciate the unique approach to this, and I do agree that it's something that needs to be done. My son went to in-home daycare his whole time that he was there, so I very much see the value in them. I'm just curious, to the point of it benefiting folks with larger property market values, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but why not find some other way to measure this? Would it be like maybe by enrollment numbers or by, geography of what is or isn't available in that region? I'm just saying, I just feel like choosing just flat market value like this is a little bit hard for me, because I would agree that I would rather see this as a credit and something we could invest in at the state. And I'm just curious, as while you were knocking doors, did anybody tell you that they would support increasing their own property taxes to subsidize something like this?
Representative Nadeau.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. So back to the not discriminating. I don't care what a home value is worth. It doesn't matter. I mean, the people that choose, they're special people that choose to open their homes and take care of take care of infants and toddlers and preschoolers. And they come from all different walks of life with all different abilities to afford houses and boats and other things. And so I look at it as a way, once again, I think it's a common sense approach to try to bolster and provide that incentive. Do I think that a lot of very wealthy homes are going to all of a sudden decide to get in the child care business because they can save, up to 50% of their property taxes? I don't think so. But if they wanted to do that, I would welcome that. And to, I guess to think that if we had a credit, and I'm not arguing against the credit, maybe we'll put it back. That's the way this bill is drafted in the Senate. And so hopefully we're going to be able to have conversations on both sides. But in order to have a credit, there has to be an actual fiscal note, and there has to be money, and we need to appropriate it to it. And I am more than happy if everybody here wants to come up with the money to do this. We could have and should have done it last session when we had boatloads of money, but it was not a priority. And so this is an attempt to start. I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to work in childcare, a lot. This is an attempt to try to start rebuilding back the 6,000 family care providers that have walked off the job because of an inability to be able to, do the jobs that they wanted to do. This is just an attempt to try to get it, try to create a more even playing field.
Vice Chair Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Nadeau. I just think that it's really important that in this day and age of our economy that we talk about there are haves and have-nots. As a single mom living paycheck to paycheck, I know folks in my neighborhood, they are struggling to keep their in-home daycares open a lot harder than folks maybe on the other side of my district who don't struggle to make ends meet, like you mentioned, those with boats and cabins and that sort of thing. So I think that there's some work to do around really kind of assessing, is this the best way to fund something like this? Again, I appreciate where you're going with this, and I support this, and I would be happy to help with that. But I do think we need to be aware that when we're giving tax breaks to folks who don't need them, I think that's an important piece to talk about. We're seeing a lot of bills that have been introduced this session that are cutting taxes or asking for tax exemptions on whole lots of things, and not as many revenue raisers. And so I think it's important to kind of see, which side is asking us to cut more of those things and make that assessment. But I do think that the family childcare providers who are asking for help the most in my community do not have boats and cabins. And I think that's important to understand, that that would directly relate back to the fact that their homes are not worth as much. And so they're not even able to take on as many kids because their homes aren't as large. And so finding just a way to maybe get creative with this, I think adding enrollment numbers or adding geographical saturation or something like that might be a way to improve this a little bit.
Chair Katiza Batoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Nadeau, for bringing this forward. I know it's your first time on this committee, and I'm really glad that you are here. I take a little bit of issue as somebody who served on this committee for the last 3 terms, plus this one, that childcare and early education hasn't been a priority. We also made some really tremendous property tax breaks for particularly seniors and renters and all sorts of things that happened in the 2023-2024 session. I am curious, potentially, if fiscal staff could assist. You said that since it's not structured as a credit, and I don't pretend to be a tax expert, I've never served on that committee, so I'm learning as I go. The fiscal impact, that it will have a small cost just based on funds that will not be coming into the state. Is that correct, Mr. Berg? Could you potentially, sorry.
I think Mr. Swanson.
Okay, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Swanson, welcome to the committee.
Mr. Chair and Representative Katiza Batoon, Jared Swanson with House Research. Assuming this bill goes to taxes, it will get a revenue estimate. And because it's structured as an exclusion rather than a credit, a bulk of the benefit provided to the property owners who would receive the exclusion gets paid for, as Representative Nadeau mentioned, through shifting that tax onto other nearby properties. The state cost comes into play in that a portion of those taxes that get shifted onto homeowners, and that can increase the homeowner property tax refunds. So typically shifts like this score a small increase in PTR.
So I guess I'm the chair now for a moment. So do you have follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that. I appreciate that. I think it's just important for us to kind of understand how the money moves around and whether or not it's going to come at a cost to the taxpayer. I think we'll be hearing throughout this session some really innovative and creative ideas on whether or not we should give money back directly to childcare providers, whether we should increase scholarships and subsidies directly to families so that they can pay providers more funds. And ultimately, I think that we do have the same goal. The chair has talked about this numerous times since our first hearing, even just last week, about how, I don't think that it's a difference of priority for the folks who sit on this committee. I think it's just kind of how we look at the different options. And so I think that bringing this forward and the consideration that I'll get in the tax committee, where people understand those sorts of things better than I do, will be really helpful in shaping this potentially going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Katiza Batoon. I do have a few comments to make on this bill, because one thing that we're going to focus on this committee is lowering costs, because we can throw money, but that also does tend to drive up costs. I love early learning scholarships. I'm authoring a bill to that effect, but we cannot just address one side of the equation. And one beautiful thing about this bill is it directly lowers costs of childcare. That's a big deal. It's hard to lower the cost of childcare. Looking at the regulations, it's hard to figure out how you can do best while maintaining safety. But what we can do is lower the tax burden. You know, I wouldn't even mind seeing this expanded to centers. I'm sure some people in this room might get very excited about that. But this is a great way we can directly lower costs without having an inflationary effect on what people are paying. So I think this is the right approach. Some of the concerns are valid, but one thing I want to mention is with sharing the property tax burden among your community. Very relevant. But if that community has more affordable childcare than surrounding communities, you better believe, and I know this committee believes, affordable childcare is a key economic driver that makes a big difference. So if you have more development, more people moving in, you might not even end up with higher property taxes. You'd end up with a better community with more affordable childcare. So I think I am very happy to hear this bill and excited to see it move forward because I think it addresses precisely what we need to address in a maybe not perfect, but in a simple way. And what we've seen is when state government gets too complex, things don't tend to work as we speak. So dismounting my soapbox, I will turn it over to Representative Vice Chair Hansen.
Thank you, Chair. I like where you're going with this, and I just wanted to ask about, to the point of lowering childcare costs. Is there anything, Representative Nadeau, you think you could add to this bill that would ensure that this cost savings in this form of this exclusion would go to lowering costs as opposed to, I know a lot of folks are just behind right now, let's be honest, right? Like just affording their day-to-day stuff is really hard. But have you thought of any kind of guarantees or just validations that we could put in here that would make sure that this money would go directly to lowering the cost of care?
Representative Nadeau.
Yeah, and thank you. I will think about that. I can't think of anything right now. These are small businesses. Their costs are there. I think that the chair is right. I think it does. It lowers the cost, a cost that a small business has. So I think it therefore in this case they're in the childcare business, so it therefore does lower the cost. But I will think about that. I mean, I am a champion of evaluations and trying to make sure that we're tying those things together that are and this is even though this is an exclusion, it's almost like a tax expenditure. These are public dollars that are being used for a particular business. So I will try to come up with something. Thank you.
Vice Chair Hansen, the reason I hesitated about recognizing you here is try and have the lead of your side of the aisle and ours end it. And we had another member who wanted to speak, who then I was like, well, we were wrapping up, and they generously did not then struck their name. So that's why I was hesitant, because the decorum of this committee, our goal is, we can bend it every so often, which is fine, but the leaders of each caucus are the last one to talk with the exception of the bill author. That's why, just so you know why I was being weird and hesitant recognizing you. That's all. Vice Chair Hansen.
Thank you, Chair. I will say I am familiar with decorum. Thank you.
Representative Nadeau, final thoughts on the bill.
And thank you, members, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I do believe that this bill, it's a work in progress, and I hope that you guys will help me, like I say, shepherd it through. I do believe that it lowers costs to family care providers. I believe that family care is one of the lowest, most affordable options for licensed care, and in rural Minnesota, it's oftentimes the only option. I think there's a lot of things that we need to work on this session regarding overregulation, paperwork, training requirements. We're going to be doing a lot of those things. I'll try to be as innovative and open as possible. But I think that this simple House File 633 is hopefully the first start of many that are going to come out of this committee that are going to help us increase capacity and drive down the care. And increase the opportunities for families in Minnesota. So with that, I don't know if did I make the motion to move this to taxes?
I've got it covered for you, sir.
Okay, awesome.
So I'll renew Representative Nadeau's motion to re-refer House File 633 as amended to the Committee on Taxes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The motion prevails, and you're on your way.